Most likely, you've heard of at least one of these things, Nintendo and the Seattle Mariners. However, not many people know how this huge video game company and a professional baseball team are connected. This is how Nintendo saved the Seattle Mariners. To find out how this all started, we'll go back to 1970 when the Milwaukee Braves moved to Atlanta, becoming the Atlanta Braves due to lack of fan base and financial reasons. Seeing that this had worked for the Braves, Bud Selig bought the Seattle Pilots and moved them to Milwaukee, becoming the Milwaukee Brewers. The problem with this was, the city of Seattle had been guaranteed a baseball team, and now it was gone. So, they did the only logical thing. The city of Seattle, King County, and the State Attorney General of Washington, D.C. took MLB to court for breach of contract. All of that went on for a while, but 7 years later, Seattle finally got their baseball team and the Mariners were born. In 1977, the Mariners had their inaugural season, although they didn't do too well as they lost 98 games. Despite this, they still managed to bring in 1.3 million fans that year. Sadly, things didn't get better. The Mariners had 3 100-loss seasons and no more than 877,000 annual fans until 1985 when they hit the 1 million mark again. In 1991, the Mariners had their first winning record of 83-79. But just when things were starting to look better, they were hit with a problem. Security Pacific Bank demanded that the Mariners' owner, Jeff Smulyan, paid them $40 million for the loans. Smulyan, knowing he couldn't keep the team in Seattle, had plans to move the team to Tampa Bay, which we know how that would have gone. In December of 1991, Smulyan announced that the Seattle Mariners were for sale, and as per stadium lease, the team had to be offered to local buyers first, and if no one was interested, Smulyan would move the team to Tampa Bay. Once this was said, a new organization called the Baseball Club of Seattle formed. This was made up of Seattle-based business owners, and their goal was to find a leader who would contribute the biggest share. They tried to get Bill Gates to contribute, but he declined. The club needed help, and someone very important stepped in. Slade Gorton, a then Washington senator and huge baseball fan, was going to try to keep the team in Seattle. Around this time, Nintendo had moved their American headquarters to Seattle, so Gorton contacted the then chairman of Nintendo of America, Howard Lincoln, to see if Nintendo had any interest in getting involved. Crazy enough, this worked, and a few days before Christmas, Gorton got a call from Minoru Arakawa, the head of Nintendo of America and son-in-law of Nintendo's then owner, Hiroshi Yamauchi. Arakawa said that Yamauchi was interested in joining the Baseball Club of Seattle and purchasing a majority ownership of the Mariners. But oddly enough, Yamauchi had no interest in baseball, so why would he want to buy a team? To understand this, let's look at him a little bit more. Hiroshi Yamauchi was Nintendo's third president until he retired in 2002. Yamauchi is known as the man who made Nintendo as we know it today. At the time he took over in 1949, Nintendo was a struggling playing card company. He turned it into a toy company and later one of the biggest video game companies of all time. As we learned earlier, Nintendo had recently moved their American headquarters to Seattle at around the time the Mariners were up for sale. Yamauchi wanted to help purchase the Mariners as a gesture of appreciation to Seattle for helping Nintendo succeed in America. Now that we know this, according to Mariners biographer Art Thiel, Minoru Arakawa told Slade Gorton, "Mr. Senator, my father-in-law says Seattle and the state of Washington have been very good to us. We have done extremely well here. We believe we owe you something to the community. If you need $100 million to buy a baseball team, you've got $100 million. Eventually, it was agreed that the offer would be $125 million, $100 million to buy the team, and $25 million to help with reorganization. However, there was a problem. Foreign ownership wasn't well thought of at this time. There was a fear that Japanese ownership could have a negative effect on American culture. Because of this, the deal looked like it was going to be turned down. This news was big, and it even made the front page of the New York Times with the headline, "Japanese bid for Seattle team gets baseball's cold shoulder." According to this article, the biggest opponent to this deal was then MLB Commissioner Fay Vincent. Vincent said, "Baseball has addressed the issue of ownership of its franchises and has developed a strong policy against approving investors from outside the United States and Canada. It is unlikely foreign investors would receive the requisite baseball approvals. This is a whole ordeal, and to explain it all could be a whole new video, but to sum it up, over the next 6 months, there was pressure put on the MLB to accept the deal, which it finally was. On July 1st, 1992, Hiroshi Yamauchi and the Baseball Club of Seattle purchased the Mariners for $125 million. However, the story doesn't end there. Both the Mariners and Nintendo benefited from this deal. So let's look at that. Yamauchi kept the team in Seattle, which is already the biggest benefit the Mariners got from this. But along with that, the Mariners signed many great Japanese players like Ichiro and Hisashi Iwakuma. The Washington State Legislature also passed a funding bill that gave the Mariners Safeco Field, which is now T-Mobile Park where they play. As for Nintendo, they released 4 baseball games starring Mariners great Ken Griffey Jr. The SNES got the games Ken Griffey Jr. Presents Major League Baseball and Ken Griffey Jr.'s Winning Run. The N64 got the other 2, which are Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Jr. Slugfest. That was a tongue twister. Nintendo also released a Mariners-themed DS in 2007, which is only available to buy at the Mariners game. Only 2,000 units were ever made, and I don't know about you, but I would love to have one of these. They also released software for the DS called the Nintendo Fan Network. This allowed fans to order food and drinks to their seats at Mariners games, find stats and scores, stream live TV broadcasts, and play baseball trivia. Sadly, Hiroshi Yamauchi passed away on September 19, 2013 at the age of 85. Yamauchi was loved by the city of Seattle and the baseball community. Slade Gordon said, "Hiroshi Yamauchi is the reason that Seattle has the Mariners. When no one else would stand up and purchase them and they were about to leave to go to Florida, he did, simply as a civic gesture." The Mariners also released a statement saying, "Mr. Yamauchi will be remembered for his role in moving forward the opportunity for Japanese baseball players to play in the United States. He will forever be a significant figure in Mariners baseball history." After Yamauchi passed, his share of the team was given to Howard Lincoln. On April 27, 2016, Nintendo announced that they would sell most of their shares of the Mariners to First Avenue Entertainment, headed by John Stanton. On August 22, 2016, Nintendo officially sold the team, netting them $661 million, and it brought an end to an almost quarter-century ownership of the Mariners. To this day, Nintendo still owns about 10% of them. While Nintendo doesn't own much of the Mariners anymore, they still have a huge, long-lasting legacy with their history. As an act of kindness, Hiroshi Yamauchi saved the team and allowed them to live and prosper in the beautiful city of Seattle.